guys, these deadly lads hail from Australia. They have a solid discography with full-length studio albums and so much more to discover. So please jump in and have a listen to all their work. Coming off a huge hiatus where we thought these guys were no longer, they've come back bigger than ever with an even bigger and flawless album in Revelator, which came out in 2021. They are the Amenta, and we're here joined by Cain, Cressall, vocalist, and Tim Pope on keys, programming, and sampling. Guys, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
We've been so excited to catch up with you guys, so really appreciate you guys giving us this time, and we're going to pick your brains, as we like to do, to everyone that we talk to.
You do. I just follow along.
Let's just rip in. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys. Well, we both do on Revelator. It's huge. Just an absolutely flawless album. Obviously, you guys know by now, it did make my #1 on my top 10 albums. And
same mine
and yours as well. Yeah. And so many others, Jackie's, and it was really, really cool. And obviously that brings me in to say that the response that you've received worldwide for this album has been pretty phenomenal. It's been 8 years since your last record, which is Flesh is Air. What separates Revelator from your previous releases?
Where do we start?
Just bang, hit you straight with the hard ones.
Tim, get into it. Get stuck in, mate.
All right. I think all of our albums always are kind of a reaction against the albums that came before them. So even though it was a really long time in between Flesh is Air and Revelator, we started the process of actually writing it reasonably soon after. So there was immediately this kind of thing of, we don't want to do what we did before. We never really want to repeat ourselves, because I think fundamentally we just find it really boring and it's not inspiring to do. So when we're sitting there writing a song, if it sounds too similar to something we've already recorded, it tends to get thrown out. So it's the kind of new ideas where we hear something go, oh, we haven't done that before, that'll be cool, that'll be interesting. That's the ones that kind of start getting developed and made into songs. And I think that's probably where Revelator started. Would come off, especially the other guys for Flesh is Air. I hadn't played live since 2011, but the other guys toured Flesh is Air a lot. And so played the songs over and over again, kind of were really sort of in it. So when it came to doing something else, it was like, all right, let's start completely from scratch and try something completely different. So it's definitely a reaction against Flesh is Air.
Another thing that's kind of interesting is when we started Flesh is Air, we had a real attitude of let's really step outside the comfort zone and let's do some really interesting weird shit. But halfway through putting that together, we kind of realized this isn't such a far cry from what we're kind of known for, and if anything, it's almost like a really severely sort of distilled version of a lot of the elements that are present on the previous two albums.
That's
obviously with a different sound, like a very different lineup, so there's something fresh about it, but it's also
very reminiscent.
It's very solid, kind of final chapter of that era, I guess. And once that was kind of done, it really did feel like a lot of space had opened up to really think fresh, without any kind of, we just kind of let loose, I guess. And
there's no pressure and there's no expectation.
Yeah, it was just a real blank canvas, which was awesome. And so I'm glad it got completed and you got to hear it.
You sort of tackled both issues where there were two questions I was going to hit you with there, but you can tell with Revelator the maturity in the music as opposed to before, but it's still there, but the maturity in the sound, the quality, the experimentation that you deliver, Tim, with all your soundscapes, sound bites and sampling, and that was everything just got heightened to a new degree where, before I thought, fuck, these guys just tackle everything. It's right up my alley. It's very dystopian. It's very, the darkness. It holds a lot, but then I didn't think you could go any further. And then, the Amenta just ends. What made the decision to hang the towel up, and who sparked it, jumping back on? Is it because Revelator was still had ideas there, and who said let's keep this going? And with the new album, is there new influences that came into fold with all of yous? I know, Cain, your vocals are just gone. Who the fuck are you? That's what I was saying. I was listening. I go, who the fuck is this guy?
Mind blowing.
There's 3 vocalists there. I don't know. You've got seriously some, I don't know, multiple personality disorder or something.
Possibly. There's a lot.
We shouldn't laugh.
But yeah, but so
please do. I'd prefer at least someone's able to enjoy this mess in some way rather than not. So please do laugh. But yeah, we had no intention of completely putting the band to bed at all. And I think there was even bits and pieces kicking around before we'd actually finished the last tour we did. I think there might have been some riffs laying around already. So yeah, it wasn't it was definite step away from playing shows, because we'd kind of gone a bit hard for a bit of a while, and that was starting to feel a bit stale, and we just needed to kind of refresh and really start getting creative with writing again. So that was not an intentional 8-year delay. That was just an unfortunate part of the process. But did you want to add anything to that, Tim?
Yeah, I think that's right. We never really said let's stop, but it was a deliberate attempt to kind of take away all the pressure and all the expectation, so that we kind of step away. We still worked on stuff, but there was also, we even played games with ourselves where we started writing music for another band. Just so there was absolutely no pressure for writing for the Amenta. And after doing that for not that long, probably, a month and a half, it was like we had all these kind of seeds of ideas. And some of them, as Cain says, were like old riffs we'd had from a little while back. And they just felt like, this is actually the Amenta. It's just a cool new chapter for it. So we kind of, I think we deliberately lied to ourselves so that we thought we weren't writing the Amenta, but we were.
It worked.
But I think
it worked.
Yeah. I think always the driving factor behind all this is the kind of the silent guy that no one ever hears from is Eric, the guitar player. So he's between the three of us, kind of that's kind of the creative core of the band. But a lot of the driving comes from him. So I remember him I actually mentioned this to Jackie the other day. I keep finding on my computer this file, which is one of the first riffs we actually wrote for the album, which ends up being an apocalypsis, and the file is called "The Amenta Are Fucking Back," and it keeps popping up on my computer. I keep seeing it. That was something that Eric sent around quite early, so that would have probably been 2014 or so. So we'd been working on it for quite a while.
So talking about this break, I mean, for you guys as a band as a whole and as individual artists, personally, how do you feel as a band, how this has helped the Amenta, this break that you've had, and personally for you guys each as musicians, artists, how this has helped you?
There's definitely been a lot of growth, because we really challenged each other a lot, and that's, I think, partly why it dragged out so long. We really challenged each other a lot. Just when you'd kind of think, okay, this is starting to take shape, someone's already starting to look at it and dismantle it and say, but what if is maybe this is worth exploring a little bit further. And it just was a roundabout of those kind of challenges, I guess. And thankfully we came out the other side of it. But really expansive. Really, we definitely, there was freedom, a lot of freedom in it. I think for me, it was probably a lot to do with the fact that Flesh was the first full length that I'd done with the band. So subconsciously, I'm probably going, okay, I've got to make sure that I'm paying, you know, my respects to the previous lineups by carrying certain elements forward. Definitely not consciously, but yeah, to some degree, I probably was sort of doing that. And once that had been kind of completed, yeah, this was kind of like, okay, I don't need to kind of keep this. We can really experiment, and the other guys are very, you know, it's a really cool working relationship where you really can do some bizarre stuff and just feel totally open with just doing what comes naturally. And even if it seems very sort of bizarre and maybe not even the Amenta anymore, sometimes we're asking ourselves, fuck, is this now not even the Amenta? I'm not sure if are we pushing this like too far out of our own sort of thing. But a lot of care of the crafting of the sound and the mix, and you know, all the other parts of the process kept it sounding like us. It still absolutely sounds like us.
Incredible.
I think the best thing about a Revelator as a whole is it delves into so many genres. Like, you don't have to be, you know, into black metal or death metal or anything like that. This is, you know, I watched your interview a while back, Cain, with Jackie into the Necrosphere, and just for example, with when you played Dark Mofo, how you were talking about how it was weird that people were sitting down, you know, they weren't, you know, getting up and into the music, because, you know, as a musician, it's like myself, you know, when you play gigs, you know, the interaction, you know. But the Revelator, I was saying to Kel, is I'll be much preferred to sit down and actually experience it. Because it's not an album for me. It's not the latest Chemical Corpse album where I'm going to go up the front and fucking snap my neck. It's this appreciation. It's like this.
It's an experience.
It's a piece of art that's you know, visual, and you know, it's a musical for the dark.
But it's still so heavy.
It's still so heavy, but it's more of an experience. It's something that you just get wowed by. Like, you know, we were hanging to get to Sydney to see his play until it got canned, but. You know, I know when I'm going to see his live for Revelator, that's how I'm going to be. I'll be resembling a fucking mannequin down the road at Maya.
We often do that. We stand in the corner with bands like that, just mesmerised, just watching while everyone's doing things behind us.
You go? Yeah. But yeah, it's a credit to you guys in the maturity and what years of, I think, you know, that nervousness about, are we even the Amenta anymore? Because you're experimenting and jumping out of your comfort zone. That's a fucking great thing, because there's not many people that can do that. You know, it's very, very hard to be that diverse. And what you have done is fucking paramount. I still can't get over it. Like,
amazing.
That's why it's number one on so many people's, you know, playlists, you know, because of that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm without words, really. Very appreciative.
Let's keep talking about Revelator, because why not? It's an amazing album. But this album, for me, when I listen to this, alludes to, you know, a deep dive into the male psyche. It feels esoteric at times, definitely cathartic and philosophical. And I love the obscurities that are thrown in there too. It's just so invasive at times, and I love it. But in your words, how would you describe Revelator? What are the overall themes of Revelator, and where does this incredible inspiration for such songwriting and music come from?
It's your go, Tim.
From the inspiration side, to tackle that first, I think we're mainly inspired by each other. I think, certainly for me, what I get inspired by is hearing what the other guys do and go, oh fuck, what if I do this? What if I do that? And we kind of bounce off each other and do that way. We're not really taking as much from other bands. Like, obviously we listen to a lot of music and we listen to a lot of art, or we, consume a lot of art, all that sort of stuff. But it's not a conscious sort of, I want to sound like that band, or I want to take that from that band. It's more just kind of, that's all just kind of grist to the mill. And when it comes to working together, it's like someone will just have an idea and it'll trigger other ideas and you get excited. And so it's just, we never really limit ourselves. It's never, we want to write a death metal song or we want to write a black metal song. It's just kind of, let's keep ourselves excited. Let's keep chasing the ideas while they're still exciting. And they end up being what they are.
Yeah.
And that's probably the main theme, I guess, of the album, is that sort of thing. It's basically about the juxtaposition of ideas and kind of keeping images fresh. Because I think the thing with a lot of extreme metal is we tend to talk, the language for extreme metal is all very similar. So bands quite often are using really similar imagery and really similar turns of phrase and things like that. And what I'm interested in is trying to find different ways to do that sort of thing. And I think we as a band are kind of interested in that, certainly musically as well, is just trying to find strange juxtapositions that have that same kind of feel, but aren't basically using someone else's words to do it. So that's kind of one of the main things around the lyrics, and which is one of the reasons why the lyrics are kind of deliberately a little bit opaque. They're not about things. They're images, and they're about. It's more like abstract art than it is like a narrative.
That's how I see it as well. Being an artist, that's, you just like, you have this, you grab this image in your head, and the title, it says a lot about the whole, for Revelator, because all the titles you read the title and automatically you've got a vision. Yeah. You've got a setting, and that's the thing, and then it sets the mood so you can go into it. Even though you can't hear the lyrics or whatever, you've already into that phase.
That's a huge mood creator. Massive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Another positive,
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it's good, I think, if you can pick up some element of what the album is going to be, or at least get that initial picture just from like really that first approach to it. So why obviously album art and things like that is so important. You're kind of giving an overall picture of the album. So I think if you can get all of those aspects to kind of work together, then that's the ideal. And obviously that's what we've tried to do for this album. I think it's probably our most successful in that way, I think.
Cool. Pulled it off real well.
And Cain, your vocals in this album, I mean, holy fuck, they are just, it's like you've just pushed yourself to well outside the boundaries with, your gutturals and your cleans. And what do you go through to prepare to lay down your vocal tracks for this album? What did you go through? And do you do vocal training, or I've got such an interest in your vocals. I always talk to you about this stuff.
I'm booking in.
How do you get in that? Because you just feel so much of what you're putting out there when you listen to this album, and it's a lot of vocalists can do that to a point, but it's so convincing when you hear your vocals on this album. It's just incredible.
Well, exactly the fact that you just said whatever it was about the feeling, it's such an important part of it, and it needs to be genuine. I need to dig to that point of really genuinely connecting and really meaning what I'm coming out with, and it can't just be for the sake of filling gaps and kind of going, okay, rhythm, blah 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 blah, that'll fit. It has to be genuine, coming from a real place, kind of thing. So, and sometimes it's tricky because you might not be feeling it, and you're just kind of in a state of, I don't give a fuck, like I don't have space in my head right now to look at this shit. But you've kind of got to, I think I really took a big influence from method acting and a lot of bits and pieces that I picked up about actors that I admire, talking about their processes in performance. And as someone that's always been really obsessed with film, I'm paying a lot of attention to really find details about what's the difference between why I'm so affected by this performance in this film and I'm not affected by this performance. This is not a bad performance. It's still great, but I'm not affected by it. Where's the affect come from? And so, yeah, sometimes you've just got to kind of force yourself down there into that place where you're really just completely in that world and connected and just spewing whatever needs to come out. And sometimes it's like the hangover from hell where you've got no food in your stomach and you're just painfully spewing up bile. It's just chunks bubbling, dripping out of your face. And sometimes that's what it's like you're digging deep and you wish you could just spew it all out, but all you can do is just kind of this grueling process of a lot of effort and for very little. But that little bit is kind of this might be that real shining nugget that was worth it. So it's just kind of digging for those little gems.
You could hear that, it's just incredible vocal performance on that album. Just completely blew me away. Everything did. Love the album.
And it goes credit to the mix as well. And
massively.
Huge.
Enormously.
Like massive credit to everyone involved in Revelator. Like that mix of everything is, if the mix was maybe, like none or something like that, the album would be good, but it wouldn't be to the heights. You can definitely hear every syllable, every note, every guitar track, the drums. The drum sound. Being a drummer, like the drum sound is just fucking flawed. Like it's big. It's massive. And also there's moods where your softer parts. It blends in so nicely. It's not that same. I don't know. It changes. You can hear the changes, and it blends well. As some with your blast beats and stuff. Need to have that real punch so you can really cut through, and to be able to hear it. Yeah. But then those softer, slower tracks, where it's that more brushier snare, and it blends in with the guitars, the vocals, everything. It's like everything just gelled so well. It's like the outstanding production.
It's a very human album, and I think that's why it kind of seems to speak to people. The band's earlier stuff had a really punishing kind of mechanical coldness about it, which was such a great part of those recordings and those songs. Oh,
those riffs, because that just they
was
clicked together. It was like the drums and the guitars really had to click. It was the main focus was really, I was just saying to Kel before, it reminded me of very much Devolved back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
If you've listened to them from Gold Coast, like very, very similar, but that the guitar riffs and everything just real, it had to match. It was like, the old Fear Factory. But what you've brought now is like you've totally flip side of that into something that's so fucking beautiful.
We had to, I think. I guess that's probably what it was just a necessary progress. We couldn't stay kind of within the limitations of that kind of world anymore. But then at the same time, the reason that it still sounds like the Amenta is because those sounds are still there for that people knew from that. You recognize Eric's guitar tone, for example, on Revelator as the guy that was riffing the Carcassus. But those sounds have just been so refined. you know, over the course of album after album, and we've got it to a point where it's finally actually sounding like a very human.
It's got that natural
recording.
sound, like you said. It's very human.
It sounds like a human playing drums. It sounds like a human. It's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you appreciate that.
Yeah,
I think we just before, Cain mentioned about, you know, film and stuff like that. And I want to go back to, you know, See Money, the film clip. And there's the extraordinary production with that, with the masks making and the big build up that you were putting on Instagram and Facey and stuff like that. Like, it was a big journey that we followed you through with this. But the actual film clip, like when I was watching it, it was like, you know, so beautiful in a macabre way, but also very Australian. It was so Australian. It was like, I know people might bag this movie out, but Bad Boy Bubby was like
don't bag that
movie. It was a great, exactly. But it was that's the thing. But some people bag the movie, but that was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life. But for some reason,
we're all big fans of Bad Boy Bubby. Yeah,
mad, but it was absolutely brilliant. But that's what it reminded me of, this dark, beautiful sort of, the filmmaking in it was done beautifully, and the ballerinas with the masks and just like, for someone who just was off, you know, our mothers or something watched that and be like, what? How can you say this is beautiful or anything like that? But it's art. It's visual art.
Couldn't have really done a whole lot if we were to try and sort of go down tried and true, you know, extreme metal kind of way of putting visuals together. I really, from one thing I knew before I'd started drafting ideas for the shots was just that I want this to be like disgustingly rich in color. I want this to be really rich color, like too much, you know, sickly sweet kind of, but with those kind of beautiful elements, but blended together with things that so you kind of you're experiencing a sweetness, but at the same time knowing this is no good, this is not good for me, something unsafe about this. And that's basically the main push was, this has to be, like, you know, really affecting anxiety dreams where you wake up and you can try and explain it, but it doesn't really sound that.
You can't explain it.
It doesn't sound like, you know, to put it into words, it's not really that big a deal, but the feeling that was there was very unsafe. And you know, I'm so glad to have woken up out of that. And I guess that's kind of what we were trying to bring to the party with that. And I think we got there.
I have to ask, because just on the back of what you were saying around the Bad Boy Bubby, you obviously picked up on that, because Australian cinema is very, for me, because I love horror and I love Australian horror, is very distinctive. Is that like a connection that you deliberately tried to make with, because I know that we know that you're a bit of a horror buff, Cain. Was that a distinction that you tried to make, that connection?
Not
with
specifically, no, that might have just been something that I couldn't really escape. I guess, you know, maybe it wasn't a conscious choice. Like, this has to look like a gritty Australian, you know, horrific thing.
That's it, though. There was, we did have discussions about Australianness for like the band photos and things like that. We wanted to have it not in a forest, you know, because you know, so it's on a beach, which is like a very kind of Australian look, but it's obviously the way it's done is quite bizarre. But also, we talked about in the Sea Money film clip, the bit where you're walking out of the ocean, things like that. We wanted to have elements of that in there. So there's, without it being directly about capturing Australian horror, there was definitely an attempt to keep an Australianness about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Or not cover it up at least.
Yeah.
I think being Australian, like we do, and if you are a film buff and you do appreciate Australian films, you do pick up on these things. I think that's probably what's happened with you with Amenta. Like you've had all these influences, and subconsciously they've bloomed out into, it's like, can the Amenta make a movie or something for us? Or,
we'll talk about that offline.
Yeah. Someone wants to fund it.
You guys smashed out a stunning 2-track EP in 2021, Solipsism. I've probably just murdered that. I just want to know, because these 2 tracks were just incredibly stunning and dark. Were these 2 tracks written for Revelator, or you guys just got the massive writing bug where you just needed to write some more music? And if that's the case, is this a hint to another full-length album coming sooner rather than later this time?
We'll definitely aim to have one out there. that's the aim. But those songs were written for Revelator, and it was so there was a whole bunch of, so the second track, Labyrinth, was one of, I think we wrote 5 maybe instrumental tracks for the album. And then we had Solipsism was kind of it was in the album running. We recorded at the same time, it was all mixed at the same time. But when it came to kind of arranging the track list, we spent ages kind of making sure there's the right peaks and valleys, and everything's got to flow correctly, and nothing we could do, as much as we loved that song, nothing nothing worked when it was fit in. If you put it in, another song felt too long, the album didn't flow correctly, so it became the little redheaded stepchild. But we loved it, so we thought, let's do something cool with it.
Glad you did.
Very cool.
So we're really happy with it. That's a really interesting song as well, in the way it was kind of, the way it came out. It was actually originally written, and it was a really straight up, quite death metal song. And like Cain was talking about earlier, where just when you're kind of getting comfortable with a song, someone goes, hang on, I've got another idea. That was a song where we were kind of like, yeah, it's good. It's a solid track. But no one was really blown away by it. And it was a bit like something we'd done before. So Eric went away and came back with something completely different. He ripped the song apart, and all of a sudden there was clean guitar in it, and there was all this sort of other parts, and it was like, oh wow, this is starting to get really interesting. And so there was a mid period of that song where it was kind of a clean guitar, and Cain's vocals were sort of clean over the top, and it was going in another direction. And then when it came to actually recording it, we started putting together all the samples and stuff, and then realized that we can just take the clean guitar out. And so the song went through this massive change from a really straight death metal song. At one point, it was almost like a trip hop song. There was percussion made with a typewriter and things like that. And then all that got stripped out, and it became this kind of a really dank dub kind of thing. So that was kind of a really odd song, and it's kind of, I guess, indicative of the way a lot of the songs were processed for Revelator. They start at one place, and by the end of it, completely different.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's a big, you can tell the difference. But that first 2 minutes of that song is just, it's such a big build up, with the soundscapes, the sound bites and everything like that. And the drums just in the background, just thump, and just, the vocals just blending through. It's a lot, I reckon it's a lot different from Revelator in a sense, still so, I'm intrigued with that. That intro was awesome. I stopped it before the music came in. I started again. So I got to hear that again, man, because there's so many things going on. And then we'll go into the metal. Then I'll start washing out in the kitchen.
Yeah, we were absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity for that to see the light of day, because once it had been kind of put down, there's that sort of feeling of that may be just, a dead and buried thing that a lot of work
want to do that.
But yeah, the fact it was, we were really excited to be able to release that as its own thing. And yeah, with enough distance from it all, I can look at it now and say, actually, that, yeah, it really worked as its own little
Yeah.
mini universe kind of thing. So
100%. Yeah. I want to go back to Dark Mofo and the lineup, having Robin come in and fill in on drums, obviously me being a drummer, you pay attention to these things, but Dave not being able to get there. I don't know the reasons why Dave couldn't get there, but having Robin fill in was just the guy is phenomenal, to say the least. Is this have a healthy relationship before this, or is this, was Robin someone you chose? Yeah. How that happened with Dave not playing Mofo and then bringing Robin in?
So that happened. We could kind of see it happening. Obviously, the Victorian border, you can see what was happening in Victoria. Was like, okay, this is going to be a problem. And I think it was only 2 or 3 weeks out. We were like, okay, we got to have a plan B here because it's likely that Dave's not going to make it. And thankfully, Robin's, he's a very good friend. He was in the band for a long time, from about 2007 to 2014, maybe 2013. Yep. So for some time he was in the band. At one point he was in the band with Dave. We had 2 drummers. We did a tour where Dave started the tour and then Frog finished it, or Robin finished it. So he's always been a good mate, and he's as you say, he's a phenomenal drummer. So we knew it wouldn't be a problem in terms of playing. But it was he'd played a lot of the songs before, but hadn't for many years. So we, in that sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I went down to his place. He's got this amazing studio out in the bush, and basically just jammed out some songs, worked through a few things. He sent a couple of recordings. So obviously he's got a recording set up. So we were kind of pretty good. We didn't. So before all this happened, everyone lives in different states. Dave's in Victoria, Cain's in Perth, Eric was in Adelaide, I'm in Sydney. So it was, in order for everyone to kind of get together, we all had to fly into Adelaide, and we did that a couple of times, and we rehearsed with Dave, and it was awesome. It was great because we hadn't played hadn't played together since 2013, 2014. So it was cool, to get, and we got really good over the course of a couple of weekends. It started out like an absolute clusterfuck, and by the end it was like, this is great. We're starting to sound like a band again. So we'd done all that work, and then when Dave not being there, it was like, fuck, this is adding a complete unknown into the set. Plus there's all this, the drummer was triggering visuals and all that sort of stuff. So there was all this other shit that poor Frog had to pick up, in a couple of sessions. Jeez. So we ended up, we went down to Hobart, and there was some fright there too, because it looked like Sydney was going to close as well before we flew down the day before Robin. And there was a point where we were like, maybe he's not going to be able to make it. So we were thinking maybe we're going to have to like knock up some drum machines and things like that. But thankfully he made it. And he came down just sort of the day before the show, and we just rehearsed like crazy just to iron everything out, make sure it was right, so that we're ready for the show.
Very lucky, really lucky. Because as soon as after doing that much work and only having 2 weeks notice that, Dave's not allowed to leave Melbourne, Victoria,
and he would have been devastated too.
We kind of, if Robin didn't step in, we wouldn't really have had any other option. So the fact that he pulled it together that quick was just really, really lucky for us.
Exceptional effort. Yeah, absolutely. And I have there's been a few people that have spoken to me that were at Dark Mofo that said that he was exemplary. So to hear that now, that he did that all in a couple of weeks, is pretty bloody impressive, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been an absolute nightmare navigating shows with COVID. I know myself trying to put them on. It's just been, postponing, cancelling one after the other. And obviously Matt mentioned before, we were very excited to see you guys play in Sydney. That tour that you were about to embark on before everything turned on its ass with COVID, can we expect that to take off anytime soon? What's your plans for 2022 with live touring around Australia?
I think at the moment our plan is, because everything's still kind of up in the air and there's a lot of money that goes into touring and all that sort of stuff, is maybe we're going to focus a bit more on trying to get some more music written and recorded. Yeah. And then have something, because it's now, unfortunately, the ship's kind of sailed on Revelator. We can't, it's a bit late now, coming out now, almost exactly a year since it's released, to tour it. So we'd rather get something else out new and then tour that. That would be the plan.
There's not many people there who be
Too late.
complaining. Seriously, it's still fresh. There's still people here who would be dying, you know, pay big bucks to see that whole album start to finish. I'll buy their tickets. I don't care. just Kel and I there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely love to. It's so hard for us to play live, so we've got to. There's so much planning that goes into it because we live so far away from each other. But yeah, we'd love to do some shows, and if I don't know about a big tour before the next release, but I'd definitely be up. Personally, I'd be up for a decent sized show. Yeah, and, just like little ad hoc things for sure. At the moment, it's kind of organizing a tour where you've got multiple flights and support bands you've got to pay and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's a scary time to do that stuff, as you know.
It really is.
Just massive expense for something that may not go ahead. It's just none of us are kind of in a position where we're, it's not an option, basically.
Yeah, I totally get it.
It's the way of the world at the moment. Just going on back to Dimofo again. Because it's such a broad, the dark arts and can be, from artists to music and so forth. How did the Amenta get perceived down there, from seeing you guys, from, new listeners, old listeners to the, people who are just there to, to gather in the atmosphere? What, did you get any good response from your show?
There was a lot of people there that did come out to catch us because it's been so long since we played, so that we knew the audience was kind of on our side anyway, to some degree. But yeah, it is a very, very diverse festival. It's really impressive. It was my first time attend. I'd not been there before, but stunning festival. And yeah, there were a lot of new faces in there, and a lot of people that I think aren't even into extreme music at all, but were more just there for the circus, the curiosity factor. So, but yeah, we got a lot of really positive response from both sides of the table. Yeah, old and new. It was
that's great.
It was a really special show. Yeah.
I think it's what I was saying before, is with your style, can hit any genre and you get the appreciation, so it's not just like, this is another extreme metal band, because there's so many elements to the Amenta now that, someone can take something from it, and either grow with it or, just stay put. But it's very encouraging to see where the Amenta is coming and going. And good to see that you are going to work on some more material in the future. So
yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, we're all very happy. So kudos to you guys.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We've been really looking forward to talking to you, and I appreciate your patience with all the COVID crap that we've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. But it's been an absolute pleasure. And if there's anything else you guys would like to leave for fans of yours that are listening, be it around your merch, albums, anything, go for it.
I guess, as always, any support is always great. Best place to support is Bandcamp, because it's the one where you can actually help us directly. But any kind of support, even if you're downloading our music, and I don't know if anyone still does that stuff, but downloading illegally and digging the music is still cool to me. So any kind of support's good.
Wasn't expecting that.
Did you hear that, Lars? Did you hear that?
Connect with us is a big one. Connect with us. It's one thing to sort of passively witness stuff, but to actually follow, these pages, particularly Bandcamp, YouTube, Spotify, blah blah blah. You know where to go. Actually connecting with us actually goes a really long way. A lot of people, I think, are unaware of how much of a difference that shit actually makes for artists, but it makes all the difference.
So important. I try to say that to people all the time.
It's continuous. It is really continuous. And I will say, with your socials, like, Tim and Cain, like straight away, as soon as I messaged, I think the first time I messaged the Amenta on Instagram, I think, and with Tim, it's like bang, straight away, like, and he's, you're sharing, and you're very, very, friendly in that, very interactive with your fans. And that goes a long way, because straight away I was like, oh my God, that's so good to see, because, a lot will just, they'll see, they won't do nothing, but you're very, very interactive, both of you. And it's, as a fan, like it is very appreciative as well.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing's important. That's what I would want. If I was talking to a band, that's what I would want from them. So that's what I always try and offer. So if people have taken the time to reach out to you, that's pretty cool. So I think you should treat them with respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. It.
Also, we're all fans at the end of the day as well. So, and I think the longer that you do this shit, and the harder it is to sort of keep the ball rolling, because it's hard. Like, you guys are aware, keeping moving forward with such an, there's no money in this shit. We're just insane fans, obsessed with something that we've been into for a very long time. So I think the longer you do it, the more you kind of appreciate when people do reach out like that. It makes a huge, it's very impactful.
Yeah, definitely.
Massively.
Well, you guys are absolute gentlemen, and this has been great. Thank you so much. And we will definitely catch up with you down the track if you guys are up for it, and 100%. We appreciate it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.